Welcome to the new Dirt to Dust series where we go through the maintenance we do between trips. Things are getting more expensive these days, so the more you can do yourself, the better it is, the more mods you can buy. Today we're doing the boat trailer wheel bearings, so let's get into it. All right, first thing we're going to do is jack it up. So the next step is to take the wheel off. If you don't have a rattle gun to undo the wheel nuts, you can use a breaker bar or a wheel brace, but just remember to crack the nuts before you jack the wheel up, because otherwise you'll have a hard time. But today, we're going to be using an air rattle gun because bring back air rattle guns.
Hello.
Miss Gnarly, you've been slacking off. Work started ages ago. And don't forget to put your jack stand in, just in case it falls. I also like to use the wheel as a seat too. Most people chuck them under there as a jack stand, but we've got a jack stand today, so let's get into it. So we run a bearing buddy, so we're going to take the dust cap off first, and then take the bearing buddy off. So we run this because it's got a, well, it used to have a grease nipple, not anymore. So then you can keep pumping grease into your wheel bearings while you're away. But most trailers just have like a steel cap that goes on instead. I recommend running them because it just gives you an option to grease them without pulling it all apart. And then we are going to take out our split pin. The split pin holds the nut and stops it from loosening itself. So we use side cutters to help pull the split pin out. You've got to try not to bugger it too much. You just got to make sure that your new kit comes with a new one. If not, this has got to be in a pretty good condition. Then we're going to use a shifter to undo the nut. This is what holds your wheel bearings in. So this is your bearing nut. This is where your split pin sits, so it doesn't come undone. And there's a hole in the axle for that to go through, and that's what locks it into place. And then next, behind the nut, there's a washer. And then, if we can get it out, that's the smaller wheel bearing that sits at the front. So by this stage, you should have your bearing nut, your split pin and your washer, and your front bearing as well. And now we're going to pull the hub off. The dust seal's decided to stay at the back, so we take that off because we don't need that anymore, so we'll be putting a new one on. And then the frame of the bearing stays in there, and the rear wheel bearing is in there that we're going to have to punch out. And now we're going to take this to the bench. It's also a good idea to clean your stub as well while you're here, because when you've got a handful of grease, we are going to put some fresh stuff on there. So after each trip now, we just go and replace the bearings instead of repacking them, just because they're not overly expensive. So what we're going to do now is punch out the old bearing races. So you've got the smaller one at the front and the bigger one at the back. So we've got to punch them out and then install the new ones out of the hub. So we're going to put the hub in the vise. So first we're going to punch out the seal and the rear bearing, which went everywhere. Now we're going to punch out the rear bearing race. This one's a bit hard because it doesn't have a slot to put your punch in, like most hubs. There we go. So that's the old race, and then we're going to flip the hub over and punch out the small one. There we go, that's the small one. So now we're going to clean out the old grease. This stuff's not too bad because we've done it probably 10,000 Ks ago in Kununurra. But we usually try and do ours every 10, 15. Clean this out best we can, and then we'll start putting it back together. So there's a couple of ways to put these bearing races in. You can use the old one to punch it down, but it's really hard to keep it flat and put it in straight. So I highly suggest going and getting yourself one of these seal installers, because that fits perfectly, and then you can punch right in the middle of it and then it's not throwing it sideways. So we're going to do that now. This is just a kit from Super Cheap Auto, and I've had 2 of these kits now and they've been really good. Never had any troubles with them. So we're going to put the small end in first. And when the banging gets really loud, you know it's home. So that's that side, and then we flip him over and then swap to a bigger size, and then we'll put the rear bearing race in. So even with the punches, sometimes it can go sideways as well. So yeah, you can definitely hear the noise change when it gets to the bottom, and it's good to check and make sure it is home as well, which it is. So we can start greasing up these wheel bearings now. We've been using this high temp wheel bearing grease for a while. We run this in the boat trailer and the car. That's what I say about it, fuck all. Now we're going to grease the bearings up. You can get like a bearing grease press thing, but I'm not a huge fan of them. I like to do it old school and do it by hand. So you're just going to sort of scratch grease into it until it comes out the top, just to get it inside the bearing. And then we're going to do that the whole way around. And now that this bearing's done, I'm just going to throw a bit of grease in the hub. And then we're going to put the rear bearing in. We're going to make sure there's plenty of grease in there so it doesn't run dry. And then we're going to start greasing up this front bearing. It's best to do it all at once so you're not cleaning your hands 30 times. So now we're going to walk over, we're going to take this smaller bearing over to the trailer. And we're going to sit that there, and then while we've got greasy hands, we are going to put a bit on the stub. And then we can go and clean our hands. All right, we're going to install the metal part of the seal now on top of the rear bearing. And then make sure it's seated, and then we can chuck our seal in. It's good to put a little bit of grease on it as well, as this bit rotates on the stub. And then we can take this over to the trailer. All right, so then we're going to slide the hub onto the stub until it gets to the back like that. We're going to go grab the grease gun. There's 2 ways to do this. Most people just load the hub full of grease first, but lately I've been using a grease gun to really fill it up, and then I'll push that front bearing in, so we'll do that now. So try and get as much in there as you can. And if you overfill it a bit, it doesn't matter, there's room for it once we put the bearing in. So then grab your front bearing. I'm going to push that into there, and ideally, see the grease coming out? That means the hub's pretty full of grease, which is what we want. And then we're going to grab our washer. So the washer goes in after the bearing, and then we can put our nut on. So then now we're going to tighten the nut, sort of fairly tight, and then we know that it's seated at the back with the seal. Then we'll undo it, give it a bit of a spin, and then we're going to tighten it. So once it starts to get firm, just let the shifter fall pretty much. And then I usually go back to where I can get the split pin through, because you'll see on the axle the hole goes straight up and down, so we need to line the nut up with the hole. And because we've put new bearings in, we're going to have to nip it up after 500 Ks anyway, so because new bearings loosen off just with wear. So I'm going to clean this up. And then we're going to put our new split pin in, and then we're going to fold it up like this. And just flatten it out. And then there you go, you've got your adjusted wheel bearing. So we ended up going and getting some new bearing buddies, and I'm just going to use the old ones as spares when I get around to put a new grease nipple in it. So we're going to put that on now. Same deal, when the noise changes, you know it's home. And then clean a bit of the excess grease off. Get our grease gun, and we're going to pump grease into it until the spring starts to move. You'll see the plunger start coming out. There we go. And we usually pump a bit of grease in here too to stop the spring and everything corroding, because salt water seems to get trapped in here. But try and get some stainless bearing buddies if you can come across them, which I've found today. And then this is my tip of the day with the dust cover. I get some super glue and just put a couple of dabs on each side, and that stops them from falling off, because I've lost a million of them in our time and sick of buying them. So tip of the week. Alright, so now we're going to chuck the wheel on. I use my feet because it's easier. And then we need to put the nuts on. This could take a while because these nuts are shit. We need to get some new rims. Yeah, I'm not a fan of these wheels anymore. We need new ones. Alright, and we're going to tighten them up. Now we're going to take the jack stand out. And then let the jack down. Get my torque wrench. If you're going to be working on your own stuff, it's definitely worthwhile getting one. This is a click style one. You can get even other style ones like deflecting beam. They will do the same thing. This is a digital one. This is very flash. So I can set my tension on here, and then it beeps at me when we get to torque. We're going to need a wheel chuck. So I set these to 131 because that's the same as the alloy wheels on the car. There's probably a specific torque setting for Ford studs, but they're about the same size, so I just do them the same. Just like that. So that's how you do trailer wheel bearings. Remember to always take spares, whether you take another set of new ones or just reuse your old ones if they're still in good condition. But for trailer wheel bearings, they're cheap enough, so you might as well just buy a new set of everything. Because sure enough, that's the first thing to go when on the road. Let us know if you want more videos like this. We're going to start doing a few on Land Cruiser bearings and possibly swivel hubs and a few other things. So let us know below if you want some videos done of something specific, and we'll try and make it happen.